James, I started to introduce you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, your company and a little bit about how you came to be a conversion co-marketing partner?
Sure. Bond Street Mortgage is a lender. We're licensed in 16 states. We were founded in 2009. I've personally been in the business since 96. I think September will be 23 years. With conversion, we started, I'd say about 6 years ago. We've worked with a number of different real estate teams. Everyone had a bit of a different CRM that they were using, and we talked to some people there. We met people like you that were from New Jersey, kind of hit it off and collaborated together from there. And anytime anyone asked us what a good product was in the market for CRM, we always referred back to conversion.
Gotcha. So when you first started, did somebody approach you, or did you go out looking for assistant to work for your mortgage business for a CRM?
So it was funny because I think, from the mortgage side of the business, turn of the millennia, I guess, we got smacked in the face with lead gen, right? Where it was a very local, get in your car where you could drive, that's where you did business. Companies like LendingTree and eLeads and Lower My Bills really, came to the market with lead gen. So it's something that we did a lot of when those services came available in 2003 and 4 and 5 as we were building our team. Post-crisis, when the market crashed, of course, and the onset of Zillow and Realtor and Trulia at the time, the Realtor was hit in the face with lead generation. It was something new for them, and throw Facebook into the mix, of course, and Facebook business pages, things like that. We just saw it as something of value that we could add because we understood lead gen. We had a good team that was calling leads, responsible, accountable for the follow-ups and creating the opportunity. And we had a couple people on the team that were understanding the Facebook world and things like the Facebook business pages. So we went out to our partners and said, hey, this is the world we live in today. You're asking for, co-marketing on Zillow and things like that. That's fine, all well and good. We want to invest, but what systems and, strategy do you have in place for that data? So CRMs became very relevant at that time.
And at that time, I think I'm not even sure I was with Conversion yet. At that time, Conversion had a suite of tools for the lender, right? On the lender side.
Yes.
So you had your own dashboard, which you currently do. I think some of the people watching might not realize that your lender gets their own dashboard. And I'm sure you saw that as a benefit in some way and worked it. Do you want to talk about kind of how you handle your dashboard and your team?
I think that Conversion really sets itself apart from that perspective and giving the lender the dashboard and the tools as well. I think a lot of the other systems, rightfully so, but they only focus on the realtor side of it. And when you have a partner that's marketing with you on the mortgage side, they really differentiated themselves there.
Gotcha. And I'm going to just come out with it now. We already had a question about this. Do you want to talk about RESPA? I'm sure you've had to think about this a lot. I know you have, as you do this stuff and as you're sharing marketing spends with agents. How do you kind of do it at Bond Street?
Yeah, RESPA is part of my family. It ends in a vowel, so maybe they're Italian. But RESPA says that anything, we obviously cannot provide anything of value more than $25 or something like that to an agent. To me, it's about investing in each other's business together. Obviously, we consult with our attorneys on this type of stuff, almost daily, it feels like. But how do we add value and how do we become business partners? Our investment is to the consumer, right? So I'm not giving Ryan money for leads. We're creating an environment where we're both investing to drive our brands forward and doing that in a partnership and co-marketing together. And if we're splitting those expenses as partners, which we do, then we are RESPA compliant.
So that actual split, I kind of know the answer to this, but I kind of want everybody to hear it. You pay half of the CRM expense and half of the advertising, or how do you?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's strictly on the advertising. So here, at Bond Street, we obviously utilize the conversion system with our agent partners, and so the CRM, the tool is an agent tool. So the agent typically obviously provides for their own technology. It's out, they use it, of course, above and beyond just perhaps the co-marketing that we do. So it's strictly when we're talking about marketing spend 50/50.
Great. So the agent brings conversion to you. You 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 pay 50%, just like you would with Zillow. You contribute to, say, Facebook ads or Google ads, and then the leads as they come in are worked by you and the partner. Um,
That's right.
and there's a lot of value there. And I know your team very well. Disclosure, everybody, I worked closely with James for a few years while I wasn't at Conversion recently. So, I, I know what he's doing, and it's pretty advanced compared to what other agents and lenders are doing. And I think one of the big value props a lender can bring is what you're doing, James, is you have a team of, you call them consumer direct, but you have advisors calling every lead pretty quickly. Is that correct?
Yes. So on the co-marketing data, and I do think it's a little bit above consumer direct. I think, when you think of consumer direct, you think of a call center and a customer service rep that really doesn't understand exactly what they're doing other than the role that they're in. Similar to maybe an ISA model where they're there just to kind of get people on the hook. Our team is actually licensed advisors that understand mortgages, are well trained to ask the right questions, so that they're, if the client or the customer would allow, we're going to pre-approve them or pre-qualify them right on the phone, and then obviously use the systems that our partners are using, like Conversion, to update the system and make sure that we're getting them into the hands of the agent as well. And the studies show it's all about timing, right? So getting to that lead very quickly and getting them on the hook and in a conversation is the difference between getting a deal or not. So we utilize, we pay for our tools on our side, and we've built out even a bit of a system for ourselves in which that data also goes into. So, we're really invested in, of course, not only the co-marketing aspect of it and generating that data, but to have the system and response behind it. I think, it's not easy to create that customer today, but I think, with the team that we have, we've more than figured that part out. It really is about the process and the system and the response time behind it, whether it ROIs or not.
So you bring up a big point. I think there's a really big tip that can come out here for a lot of the agents and brokers listening. I know that a lot of people will go to just any lender who's willing to throw 250, 500 a month at them, right? It's kind of like a thing out there, like, right? It's just, look, I need, will you pay for my leads? Is what it boils down to. But nobody really thinks, I don't think a lot of people spend time interviewing that lender partner and saying, hey, how fast are you going to reply? How many guys do you have, or girls do you have, making the calls? Do they know how to use a CRM? And I think that's where your shop's differentiating yourselves. Like, there's actual real value there. I'm not trying to set you up for a RESPA problem, but if there's an advantage to the agent that there's a qualified body talking to that person about real estate if the agent's out busy showing houses, right?
If the investment is always on customer acquisition, if it's focused on that and the customer and anything that we do, whether it's beyond that retargeting or whatever marketing that we do, you're always going to be RESPA compliant. It's the RESPA problems happen when, just like you said, like, oh, give me $250 a month because I want to do some postcards or something. That's where you just, cutting a check isn't cool. If you're investing together to build your business and build your brands together in digital strategies and marketing, that's something that's easily quantifiable and shows that we're invested in the acquisition of the customer. That's going to always be RESPA compliant.
Yeah. The thing I was kind of skirting around in my head is the fact that I have this word I wrote up here, de facto ISA, right? Like, you guys, if an agent or broker is working with you, they might not need an ISA. I mean, it's good to have one, but your team is that good. Somebody's making the call.
No question, and it's de facto, mortgage advisor, in the sense that, of course, if we're going to co-market in that data, then we're going to put the people in the right place to make sure that we capitalize on it. So, the incentive is obviously there from our side as well. There's a potential mortgage. So it's not just, hey, call my leads or something to that effect. We're both invested in that data, and we're both trying to acquire that customer.
Excellent. So how does it go? What's been your experience with your agent partners? I want to talk a little bit about the implied referral relationship, because one of the reasons you do this, James, I know you built your business around agent relationships. So you have this co-marketing going to leads, but also there's kind of that implied, like, hey, we're working together here. You've got your foot in the door so that they can send you referrals, right? And vice versa.
Absolutely. I mean, from your side of the table as the agent, right, you're supposed to give a number of recommendations. I believe it's 3 if you're going to recommend. And for us, as long as we're in that conversation, that's good enough. We'll do the work from there. And of course, today the consumer is coming to the table well informed, and many times from an agent perspective, they already have a pre-approval. So if they have one, we're always happy to have a discussion and give a second opinion if they're willing to give us that opportunity. And if they don't have one and it's a fresh start, so to speak, like I said, as long as we're in the conversation, that's all we can ask. And that's how we've really built our business. We've never mandated our agent partners, marketing partners saying, oh, we got to be in the contract or this or that. I've seen some crazy stuff over the years. We're just happy to have the opportunity and work together.
Awesome. Now we're getting some great questions here. Somebody's asking if you if you offer consulting. I think, James, the best way to get a hold of you might be through email or through the Facebook, right? And
Yeah.
I don't think you're consulting per se, but you seem to be very willing to help. So
Happy to.
Yep. So that's the answer to that. Just reach out to James. I'm sure if you have specific questions, he'll answer. Somebody's asking, how is the lead routed and followed up? Do both the agent and loan officer follow up? I'll let you answer that, James.
So, when all of this technology started, it's funny, right? Because we say, you get that lead in and you say, don't call it, don't do anything with it. We have to touch it first, and that to me has all gone by the wayside. I've tested many services out there, all the big guys, and just go to realtor.com and submit your information and hit click. Guarantee you, Quicken, who's awesome company, of course, they'll call you in about 3.2 seconds, and you'll get a call from 7 other mortgage companies. Even if that's your listing, and many of those mortgage companies are going to say, hey, you're working with an agent. So that's a long answer. The short answer is we should both be calling. We should both be trying to contact that person as quickly as we possibly can, because they're out there, they're shopping. As good as our strategies are, it means that we're getting a person that is out there, and so they're going to be on other websites. They get dozens of calls, so one of us has to be first.
Yeah, and your chances are increased if both of you are calling.
No question. And many times that happens. We capture the lead a half a second earlier, we call a half a second earlier, we have them on the phone, and then we're updating a system, or literally the agent might call, and as we're even putting in the notes, the agent may call and finally get that person say, oh yeah, I just spoke to somebody at Bond Street, and then sure enough, boom, they see our notes coming through. So somebody is calling, and it might as well be one of us first.
Gotcha. Now you mentioned that you add notes to the client. I'm going to get into a little bit of the technical side here, but basically you're adding notes to the contacts in conversion or core, right?
That's right.
So
Yep.
Yep. So in each contact record, this is kind of basics for a lot of people here, but I just want to point it out. So the scenario is kind of the lead comes in, James's team has a conversation, or the agent has a conversation, and you are doing that right here, right? So note. And then I believe I'm a little rusty. Do you say like notify agent or something like that on your side?
I'm a little rusty on it too, actually. I think as long as you're putting in the note from our side, on the lender side, you just it automatically goes back to the lead owner.
The lender can see it. So
yeah.
That's one of, it's a very basic thing, but that's a key differentiator. What you have here with KV Core and conversion is just the attention that's paid to the ease of seeing what the other side is doing.
Quick question for you there.
Yep.
Are you meaning to share a screen quite yet, or is this just the vocal interview so far?
Well, I am meaning to show a screen this whole time. It says that it's shown. So we are going to unshow and show again. This happens all the
Hey, there
time.
it is.
All right, sorry everybody. Wow.
I mean, it happens.
Yeah, I had all these notes going on and everything. Yeah, here we go. So this is what we're talking about. Add notes right here. Um, inside the contact record, quick note, text, hashtag, and it looks very similar from the agent's side. Another thing I know you do, James, this is going to go in a lot of directions. I know, do you still have somebody on your team kind of cruising the activity stream in the lender dashboard?
Absolutely. I mean, that to me is like one of the most awesome features around that activity stream.
Right, so the lender can see the activity stream. He or she can see who's on your site in real time. And James, you work with enough agents that this in your lender dashboard is constantly full of,
Constantly. Yep.
yeah. So, you know, if you're a lender watching this and you want to work with 5 agents around your state, you can see them all in one view and just sit there all day and just cherry pick the most active people who are on the site. So, um, okay. Yeah, somebody said they saw my screen the whole time. I think it was just some of the difficulties we were having getting James on. So let's get back to our notes. Okay, so James, your team's working to lead, the agent's working to leads. Hopefully, James, I kind of was hinting around this, but I know that a lot of the teams and agents you work with send you business all the time, and most importantly, I know you send them business, which is rare for it to go the other way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from the mortgage side of it, we've developed a lot of strategies to develop the customer as well. And very often, from those strategies, we're all not, I'm going to say 90% plus of our consumer direct strategies are purchase driven. And I'm leaving out that 10% because as rates have dropped here, we're actually, exploring a couple of refinance strategies, but 100% has been purchase based. And so typically we're getting people early in the process, pre-approving them, and then referring them out to some agent partners in all the states that we're doing business.
Right, but you also end up sending them leads that weren't generated through conversion. I think that's what I'm getting
Yeah,
at.
absolutely. From our own marketing efforts on the mortgage side. Yep.
Right. So another key distinction, you want a lender who's thinking about the follow-up and is staffed for it. And you also want somebody who's going to kind of have you be like one of their top 2 or 3 when they do have a referral. It should be coming back to you, right? I mean, it just makes sense. But I know what happens a lot of times, and it goes the other way, James. You know, an agent will go and they'll sign up 5 lenders and get 250 from each of them. But there's really there's no kind of partnership there with respect to sending each other business.
Yeah, I think unfortunately it's kind of just we're a product of the environment, and I think we've definitely topped out when it comes to that. But that was the craze, and everyone, to quote Michael Douglas in Wall Street, people are sheep and sheep get slaughtered. And we were some of those sheep, and it was lead generation and get your lender on Zillow and make them pay, or get 5 lenders on Zillow, because we don't sell 100% of the market, we sell 600% of the market, and you should have multiple people investing. And it's kind of crazy to me, because you want to know who your partner is before you do business, and before you invest a dollar together. It's kind of like you want to date before you get married. I mean, I haven't gotten one lately, but there was a time there that and maybe people got the hint, and that's why I don't get them anymore. But I'd get a random agent asking an invite from Zillow, hey, co-market 1,000 a month with me. To me, it's the investment has to make sense, and you have to be like-minded in making that investment. And like I said, the systems and the process and the team has to be in place. I think with the strategies that are out there today, you always have some great things that you talk about in this webinar on a weekly basis. You can do so much for yourself today, put those dollars to work. And so creating that audience, like I said, it's very hard. You make it look easy because you know so much about it. But that part is secondary to, hey, this person is reputable, they're good at what they do, they have a good reputation, we think the same, we're both growth mode, and now we can talk about how we're going to invest and go from there.
Yep. You bring up a good point too on some of the more advanced stuff. I was just about to circle this term, and I think You, Shane, I'll give myself credit. I was involved in this, about a year ago, or 2 years ago, as it started to be discussed. But one of the big things you do, and a big takeaway for a lot of people listening, is you are actually retargeting the data that comes in from the agent side, right?
Yep, absolutely. So that data is going into a retargeting audience, and that's from our perspective, and that's from an agent perspective, where we're a partner, we're invested, and yes, we can co-market and invest in creating that customer opportunity. After that, we each invest in our systems, we each invest in our branding, which is our retargeting, so that I always give the analogy of we're a bunch of cattle ranchers out there, and we're out on our horses, and we have to bring everyone into the ranch, and so the retargeting does well at that, and so we can always trace that lead back to our agent partner, so that somebody goes astray or is just not responding or they're just not ready, right? I think we've talked about this before. The hardest thing in our business, obviously on a purchase transaction, is that the research shows that from when somebody registers on one of these search property websites, that it takes them on average a year to transact. So you get the data today, that person is a buyer or a seller, but and the seller is a little bit more than a year. So how do I stay in front of this person for that time frame? And of course, email and text messaging and voicemail drops, slide dial, all of that stuff is great within an automation, but to have your brand in front of them as they're floating out there is so crucial, right? And one thing I love, that's positives that's come from all of this technology is that type of strategy was only limited to the big brands, right? If you're Coca-Cola or Verizon, but because of what's become available in the marketplace, you can invest as a little bit. I've seen you and Shane create strategies for people with a couple dollars a day. They're getting, they're getting opportunity from that, and that's truly awesome.
Yeah, so what we're kind of talking about, retargeting, James, you talk like an old pro now, but a lot of people haven't even heard of this thing. It's basically where somebody visits your website and then you follow them around the web. So Amazon, Walmart, they all do it. But now it's pretty easy for us to do on the ground. And the example here with James, this is one of your partners, right? Chopper Russo.
Yep.
Somebody comes to Chopper's site, they click a Facebook or a Google ad, maybe we're running it, maybe maybe you're doing it outside of conversion. They get here and they're interested in a real estate search, but what they then see on Facebook is our buddy Shane here, right? This is just an example, with a video with the Bond Street logo and everything else driving back to the mortgage side. And to me, if I'm going to partner as an agent with a mortgage lender, and I want them to be doing this, right? They're doing, you're doing something sophisticated here that's keeping the lead in our fold. And of course, you go the extra mile, you and Shane, you help the agent also brand themselves with some retargeting.
Absolutely. And the team is happy to do that and give apply our strategies to what they're looking to do with their brand. And again, for me, the turning point was we were really getting it from all sides, and that's fine when we talk about investment, but we really made the turn for ourselves, which shorter term, it's probably cost us a little bit more, but it's been more lucrative in the sense that we said enough of this. Why am I paying LendingTree, $50, $60, $100 a lead? Why am I paying Zillow this money? Why am I paying, Trulia this money? For them to then put their brand constantly in front of that person. That's their job, and they do a great job of it. Of course, they're great companies, but so your customer acquisition is nothing in that world, because they're going to keep coming back to that customer and getting them back to their website and seeing their brand everywhere they go on the internet. So their cost of acquisition is really high, and that's not branding for you. It's really just transaction based, and it's like somebody rings the bell and you have to answer the call, or else they're gone. Here, they don't necessarily have to ring the bell. They just have to kind of go to some place, or just be browsing, and if they go away, then you're still following them around until they're ready to engage you. And so to develop those strategies and create your own brand and have your brand out there in front of people. You know, if you're gonna do this longer term, I think to me that's the key to longevity, is building your name. Zillow's job is for when you and I are at a cocktail party to say, hey Ryan, where'd you get your house? It's not from Ryan Hartman or some great agent. It's, oh, I went on Zillow. And the same thing from our perspective is, hey, where did you get your mortgage? Not from James at Bond Street. Oh, I went on LendingTree. That's what these strategies allow us to do, is for people to remember who we are. I always say it's, you know, you see a commercial or you see a display ad for Coca-Cola, you don't get up and go buy a Coke, but the next time you're in a deli and you're grabbing a sandwich, chances are you're going to grab a Coke. So why not have your face? And I think, you know, the content is the big piece of that. And I think people are afraid of that. But once you do that, and you guys have taught me that as well, not to be so shy about it, it's a very, very powerful thing. And it's hard to measure, right? So that's where agents say, oh, this isn't working. You know, I'm not getting any leads. Well, retargeting is not about lead generation. Retargeting is about branding. And, you know, the cool thing that I've learned from you guys, and you can get those strategies as hyper focused as you want. So whether that's past clients or a specific data set, you can put your brand in front of that specific data set. And that's really, really cool, because now you can budget very well, because you decide how much you want to spend and who you want to put that in front of. So you really get the most bang for your buck. So I always say it's like equivalent to, instead of calling out of the white pages like we used to do, hey, do you own a home? Do you want to refinance or looking to buy? Now it's very pinpoint into who those conversations happen with. And it is a numbers game, but the percentage, you know, you've seen our analytics, you know, our contact rates are 60%, and north of that on certain data sets. So it's really exciting stuff. And I do think, as much as a lot of these different strategies are out there, the basics of what's going to come out of this is going to be here to stay.
Great. Yeah. So retargeting in general, we have some questions. We do have a course that I created in the learning portal, which is at the bottom left of your dashboard, show you the basics of what's going on here. The question was, there was a question, you know, so instead of going to your website, when you click on the squeeze page, it goes to the video. What's actually happening, and what's very sophisticated about what James and his team are doing, is that if somebody lands on one of their partner sites, like Chopper Russo here, there's a pixel from Facebook and Google installed that then allows James and his team to show ads like this directly on Facebook. So by the time the consumer, they've gone to the website, Chopper's team's called, James, one of your guys is called maybe 1, 2, 3 times, right? Because you're consistent, and
Yep.
then maybe tomorrow or a couple days later, there it is again. There's a guy, a real human being from Bond Street Mortgage, talking to them in their Facebook stream. So yeah, for my money, guys, if you're going to choose a lender partner, and for all you lender partners listening now, you got to up your game, because there's guys like James out there that agents are going to gravitate towards, you know.
And those of us that are the professionals, and I always say I don't know what else I would do besides this, so I have no choice. I guess I'd be an Uber driver maybe, but you know, we understand that it's a long-term game, and I think the world that we live in today, rightfully or wrongfully so, but we've just been built up on this instant gratification, and there's so much data. And like I said, go out and try it. You'll get bombarded for the first 24 hours with calls, and then radio silence. And like I said, we know that it takes time. It's, you know, it's very rare. And when it does happen, when people, you know, that's where the agent, and again, Zillow is a great company. They've done an amazing job. That the agent says, oh, well, I got them the first day and I took them out and they bought a house. And that does happen, but those people were probably out there looking for a year or two, or, you know, they had a bad experience, a couple deals fell through, and boom, you just got hit right on the, you know, right time, right place, and you got that deal. But the reality is, the majority of the business, we see it in our data. On average, you're talking about people kind of, you know, I call it like propping up, where they start raising their hand 4 or 5 months after they come in, and then it goes from there as far as what the time is that they actually are going to, you know, do that transaction. It's a big financial decision to buy a home, so it's not like your lease is up and, you know, tomorrow you're going to go to the car dealership and Saturday you're driving the car off the lot. That's not how it works. So you need to cultivate that larger set of data, but we've been so conditioned to just focus on that transaction today and now, that person that you got on the phone now, that all this other data is just there. And it's, there's some great people that do a great job of it out there, but a lot of times that's where, like I said, the great lead gen companies, that's what they do. It's really just the same people kind of recycled. It's just that they've moved up on that ladder of actually, transacting. So when they came in to the time they transacted, they probably been on Zillow, 10, 15 times, and Zillow sold that lead 50, 60, 70 times. So if we could have that data driven to where we want it to go, and it's fine, to me, when people say, oh, well, they're still going to go to LendingTree or they're still going to go to Zillow, hey, that means we're doing something right. if they're coming to bondstreetmortgage.com or businessownermortgages.com and they're going to chopperussogroup.com as well, that means we got the right people. And now let's go compete for it. That's really the fun of it. And you know what? When they see, and again, I'm not here to sugarcoat in any way. It's hard work. It's why they call it mining. It takes time. There is
and the ROI is not fast. You've learned that the hard way, right?
No, absolutely. It's a huge cycle, definitely. It's a big investment up front. And you hope to get some things, quick. And that's always great, and that does happen. I mean, I see it with our people on the consumer direct model and our agent data. We have people that literally are out there trying to build the business from the ground up, and it took them 6-7 months to close a deal. We have many people that have closed a transaction in their first month with us because of the way that we've, really attacked the data.
Excellent. Cool. Some questions here. Let's see. This just some stuff I think Annalise is answering. Yeah, I think the lenders that I've used in the KB core system have gone through some more minimal training, but they don't seem to hang on long enough. And I think that is a big thing. If you're going to partner, there just needs to be some commitment. So maybe start with inviting your lender partners to these webinars. Make sure they sign up for the group. Make sure they.
Ryan, can I make a point there?
Yeah.
That is a great question and a great response from your side. And yes, if you want to do business together and you want to co-market together, you better be ready for your commitment. I'm not a wham bam, thank you, ma'am, one night stand. This takes time. The numbers show that. Yes, if you have a great data set and we can kind of, shake the cage a bit and get some, good things happening right off the bat because you have some great audiences, but you just need some help kind of revamping that. But it takes time, and that's what it takes. And so whatever your budget is, be realistic and say, it's like investing in the stock market. If you go out there and think you're going to invest in the stock market and you're going to make 50% in a day or two, you might if you pick the right stock at high risk. But the history shows it's a long-term investment, and the same thing here. You're going to generate an audience, and you're going to cultivate a business. It takes time, and it really is about a year before you really start seeing things heat up. Now, the team has done a great job. I've seen that window get shorter and shorter. I know like Shane has worked with some agents that started in new markets, and within a couple of months we're already going. So and that's really cool because that means we're doing the research and we're doing the development to narrow those times. But the reality is you're going to have to make that investment to really. I'm not saying you're not getting transactions day one. I'm just saying that to really see things picking up, it's going to take time.
So don't sign up a lender and get them to agree to 2 or 3 months. They'll try it out. Work with somebody who's like, what? We're going to do this for a year. It's kind of your point, or 6 months at least, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, again, the bigger companies, they just want you to, buy a lead, whether it's a month or two. I know some have contracts, but that's all they care about is collecting revenue. We care about building a business and building a brand together. Bond Street next month will be 10 years old. It took a long time to get here, and I hope that we can, grow it further, but it doesn't happen overnight.
If I may add something to that, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Please.
So I know when I was an ISA working within a brokerage prior to coming on at Conversion and Inside Real Estate, I would sit down with the lenders a couple of times a month just to sit down so we could overview things, because he, like the lender and I, like it was a guy and a lady from different companies, but we would work together on like the tandem efforts. And we had it lined up like, okay, when I send this, like when I send X over, then the lender picks up X and takes it to Y, and then maybe it comes back to me. But we really laid out an expectation of processes for each other, so we understood where one thing left off, one picked up, and vice versa. And then we continually had conversations to make sure we were on the same page to help stem off any misunderstandings or miscommunications. So I would just encourage communication like that.
Absolutely great point. And you know, that's the one thing I preach to all of our team here in the company and all of my partners. That word is sacred with me. Communication, like any other relationship, it's important. So when you do start working together, and it's a great point, because you have certain ways of doing things, we may have certain ways, but the idea is how we put the best of what we do together and keep everyone on the same page. We've definitely, had to work through those things, and that's fine. It's just getting to know each other and how each other works. Very important.
Excellent.
Awesome.
All right, so some other stuff. I just had some other notes. James, I know if you want to talk a little bit about it. I know you use the conversion system. Mostly you guys cherry pick the activity stream, you do the instant calls, but conversion also allows you to, and KV Core, you send leads into your own CRM as well, right, on the mortgage side.
And the great thing about conversion and those sites is that obviously the opt-in is there, the disclaimer is there. So once they're opting in, then we're typically, pulling that data into our system, and also, again, based on response times, building out some marketing from the mortgage perspective. So email and other content that might otherwise get to them, relative to more from the mortgage perspective, but always, with the intent that as we pull them back in, then we can always track it back to, the origin of where that lead began and get it back to our agent partners.
Yep. So if you're thinking about working with a lender, reassure them that the data isn't just in your CRM. They have their own dashboard. They can see it all. They have the option to push it into their system through Zapier. And I'm very biased, but I think that Conversion KV Core do a good job for a sophisticated shop like yours, James, just facilitating that stuff.
We're figuring out how we can push it back into there from our system, which would make us much more efficient too.
Right. So the bi-directional is the next frontier, huh?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously you work in so many systems on a daily basis that would be tremendous for efficiency, but it's fine. I work on 4 or 5 screens, and our team has at minimum 2 screens, so easy to work in 2 places.
How many leads could one guy on your team realistically handle? So I know there's some people listening who are solo shops, but there might be some people listening to this who, they're getting 20, 30, 50 leads a day. What kind, and who do you work? Do you work with teams like that, James, or is it?
Yeah,
How do you define? Yeah.
So it depends on the source, because obviously conversion, you can bring in data from all different places. But if we're focusing just on the co-market, I mean, wow, we probably at this point we have 7, 8 people full time working on our data, including agent co-marketing data. So probably hundreds a day. It's not going to be that hard.
Yeah, I'm trying to hammer home the point, and I'm not. You want somebody with infrastructure before when you choose the lender partner,
Yes.
because I know you have a few agents who are pushing all their Zillow leads at you too, and that can be massive. If a guy's spending 20 grand a month on Zillow, that's a lot, and you want to make sure that the team on the other side of that, working from the lending side, has the infrastructure.
No question.
So before we go, we have some links in the stock that I'll share with everybody. BondStreetMortgage.com. I have a link to James's Facebook profile. James, do you want to talk? Because you always fascinate me. You're a markets geek, like an interest rates geek, and I thought it might be fun if I gave you the opportunity. Where do you see things going in general with this market? How do you feel about it?
I think overall the housing market is very strong. You know, I always go back to the 24-hour news cycle and, you know, the hysteria that it has to create to keep people tuned in. So, you know, if it's a good day, everything's great. If it's a bad day, the world's falling apart. I try to focus on the underlying numbers economically. We have a 3.8 unemployment rate. Interest rates are, you know, really behaving at this point. I mean, they're down pretty much a full percent from their peak back in November, early December. So the Fed, you know, pivoted and basically said they're going to go to a wait and see type model. And, you know, they raised 4 times last year, 10 times, you know, from zero. We thought the rest of the world was going to start doing the same, but they haven't quite been able to catch up economically. So Europe, for example, last week, where we thought they'd start ending their stimulus, they're talking about more stimulus in Europe. What that translates for us is definitely lower mortgage rates. You know, I think it is a little bit seasonal, so I do think that they will, you know, spike up a little bit here, but you're still today you're in the low 4s on a 30-year fixed. Like I said, November, December, we were in the low 5s, so it's a big move down. And I think as long as fundamentally you're looking at a 3.8% unemployment rate, wages were higher year over year, I feel really good about the housing market right now. I know that, you know, we have this 10-year cycle where we have a recession, and that's going to happen, whether it's next year or the year after. I mean, things usually get dicey in an election year as it is because of the uncertainty, and that tends to rattle markets. But as long as people are working, inflation is really, it's really tame. I feel like we're in a Goldilocks situation right now. I feel really good about housing. That's just, you know, I use history as a guide, and it could change day to day. There's obviously geopolitical things that happen in the world. But if you ask me today, you know, I feel like this will be another strong year. I think regionally, you know, you still have inventory issues, but I think that sellers are, you know, I think it's a balanced market. You know, I think where you had obviously a buyer's market coming out of the financial crisis, then it went to a seller's market. I find this to be a very balanced market right now, and that's a good thing. We don't need a market that goes crazy every year, year over year. And the fact that sellers, we have to talk to them about, hey, interest rates are higher, the cost of money is higher, even if rates aren't higher. You may not get that return that you were, you know, looking for on this property, and so that's a good thing. Let's rebalance, build that foundation, and, you know, go up from there. And that's all the signs that I see. I see very good things ahead.
Great. Thanks for that, James. Did anybody have any other questions? James, we try to keep it, you know, right under 3. I know a lot of people have appointments top of the hour. If anybody has any other questions, I'll make sure that it's very easy to get a hold of James. We'll post this to the Facebook group, and you can comment with any questions you have. And James, I'll tag you so you can come in and answer. Just go ahead, Annalisa.
Well, I was going to say, if you have questions on billing, that's something we really don't speak to. It's beyond our scope. So it's really important, if you're going to have questions about billing and lenders and so forth, to please contact billing at Inside Real Estate for their insight on billing type issues for splits and how does it all work out and so forth. That's where you're going to get that expert information.
Yep, I see this a lot in the advertising department. So basically how it works, the broad strokes, is that our billing department will send you and your lender separate agreements that they sign. James, I'm sure you've signed a handful of those.
Yeah.
So that the money is so it's RESPA compliant.
Right.
Yeah, so James, thanks a lot, man. We could talk for hours more, and I might have you on again. I wanted to talk about some of the honey holes. Maybe we'll leave an open loop, like the types of mortgage programs and things that are that provide opportunity from a lead gen perspective. But maybe we'll plan to do that another time, because that's a whole other subject.
I'll plug that real quick, everyone on the line, and I appreciate the time and the opportunity and the invite. I'm really honored to speak to the group, but we do specialize working with self-employed individuals, and that's what realtors are. And there's a lot of good strategies out there today for self-employed individuals that otherwise, you know, weren't available not too long ago because of the way the regulations kind of closed the door on that, where, you know, maybe 15, 20 years ago, self-employed people always had money available. And that's the good thing that I'm seeing in the market, is that funds for self-employed people are back, and I'm even seeing those rates coming, down. They're definitely higher than conventional mortgages, but the strategies are there, and they're here to stay. Once again, for those of us that have been in the business for a while, that was the old Alt-A. I'm not talking about, subprime mortgages. It's just an alternative to, hey, I'm self-employed, I take expenses. Fannie Mae says I have to show X amount of income, taxable income. Well, there's quite a few other strategies out there that can help you with the mortgage without having, that net income that you would otherwise need for a full doc loan.
Yeah, so if I can plug Bond Street at all, I've seen firsthand you guys are doing a ton in the self-employed corner of the universe. So yeah, if you have questions about that, James is definitely, and his team are definitely a good place to go. And that's also a great angle for your own lead generation, which is kind of what I was getting at, James, that self-employed buyer is so underserved. There's some opportunities for both the real estate and the mortgage side to lead generate around that.
Yeah, even investment properties, especially the 1 to 4s on the smaller side of things, the local banks and the bigger banks, they like the big numbers, the $1 million deals and things like that. But, you have somebody that's looking to buy a 2, 3, 4 family in an LLC, property cash flows, and they're really having a hard time finding financing or even leverage, because some of that financing, you can even do it as little as 15% down, and the local bank wants 25%. Yes, the rates are higher, but you're talking investment, and those numbers you plug in and they still work in your formula as far as return. There's really good programs out there for the 1 to 4 family investment market today, as compared to just a couple of years back.
Great, thanks, James. So another thing to think about, work with a lender who will help you lead generate around ideas like this. I think we didn't have time to talk about it, but there's tons of opportunity in building out funnels where you generate the lead around, say, a 1 to 4 multi, and then the the retarget, so to speak, is around the business owner or entrepreneurial, entrepreneur getting a mortgage. So
I'm a contrarian, and not that I'm, you guys are the experts in real estate, but if I would give any advice professionally, I would say do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. So everybody's posting their open house and this great house that they have for sale. Think a little bit outside of the box. Those houses that are a little run down, we can put a really cool thing together for renovation type financing, and show people what they can do and how they can finance that home, and maybe even turn it into the dream home that they want. And like you said, the investment, if you're self-employed, having a tough time getting a mortgage, which self-employed people typically are investors and buyers, and a lot of other things. And like I said, which all of you are, if you, I think, look to position yourself just out of a different light and show people. I think we do take for granted today as professionals, because so much information is available, that the consumer is informed. Yes, they are informed, but they really don't know. And it's two different, it's two different things. They have the information, they understand it at a certain level, but to really let them know what might be available and what other options are out there, and how real estate is a powerful, tool to create wealth. Think a little bit outside the box, and I'm more than happy to, talk about how we can, contribute to that. And sometimes it's just basic, like I said, showing some numbers and what people can do to get the home they want.
Great. So James, thank you again. I guess if people want to reach out to you, we will have a link to your Facebook. I know that you have to be picky with who you work with, and I'm already seeing some questions about that on this side. And naturally, whenever you do something like this, James, it's going to attract people to you. Are you open for co-marketing relationships, or is it kind of what's your take right now? You taking on new partners?
Of course, we're always available for co-marketing.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. James, I didn't want to cause you problems, because you're going to regret that, I think. All right.
No, it's all good. I'm willing to talk, and it's always a good conversation. So, like you said, whether I can share advice or learn something or talk about co-marketing, I'm more than happy to do that.
Great. So thanks a lot. Thank you, everybody, for being on today. We will get the replay live probably later today in the group. We'll email it out tomorrow. Feel free to share this with your lender partners and everybody else at your office. And James, can't thank you enough. This was one of our best, I think. I really had a good time.
Thank you.
It was awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Bye, Annalisa. Bye, guys.
Bye.